Thank you. Good evening, South Windsor. Welcome to the South Windsor Town Council regular meeting of Wednesday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Could we have a Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please. Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you. Councilor Evans?
Here.
Councilor Kraboski?
Here.
Councilor Lopez? Here. Councilor Paterna?
Here.
Mayor Pendleton?
Present.
Deputy Mayor King? Here. Councilor Kozakowski?
Here.
Councilor Leidecker? Here. Councilor Gamble?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Under the mayor's remarks, I'd like to comment we just had the town helped out with Hartford's Bags of Love on Saturday evening with a sleep out to bring awareness to homelessness here in our community and also throughout Connecticut. And it was an event that occurred. And I was giving by Sue Mickelson that she asked me to share from the Wapping Community Church at 1790 Ellington Road, South Windsor, is having a sleeping bag drive for the homeless. We are collecting new sleeping bags for the homeless in Hartford. They expect to have about 150 homeless people this year. As our church is known to reach out to the community and beyond, we're looking for 150 sleeping bags. They need to be winter sleeping bags. If you want to have them shipped to the church or dropped off at the church, the drop-off time is 9 to 11:30 and 1:30 to 4:30. And if you have any question, I'm going to give you a date in a second, but if you have, it's on 11/13 that's going to occur. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to call Sue at 860-644-3207. Thank you for your help as a community. I know we will make a full success. So she asked me to share that for our little bit that South Windsor can do for the folks in Hartford. I'd also like, under the mayor's remarks, if I may, November is National Awareness Month for Military Family Month. It's Military Month and Native American Heritage Month. We have upcoming events. Tomorrow is Election Day, November 8th. There's no school. Veterans Day is November 11th with a Veterans Day ceremony down at Veterans Memorial Park at 11 a.m. Veterans Recognition Ceremony for the Vietnam era is November 30th and December 1st, 2022 at South Windsor High School. We also, Councilor Paterna, have an announcement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The South Windsor Irish Committee asked me to remind everyone that the annual Irish Oktoberfest is being held this coming Wednesday, November 10th, 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Lodge at Meneely's on Rice Street. And this year, Kathy Kennison is the South Windsor Town Honoree. Art Sladek is the South Windsor Town Marshal. You may purchase tickets through Kathy at 860-680-1525 or stop at Shea and Company Real Estate, 49 Oakland Road, to pick up tickets there. Donation for each ticket is $30. And all the proceeds go to benefit the South Windsor, or the Hartford South Windsor participation in Hartford St. Patrick's Day Parade.
It's a tough one, I know,
Thank
and
you.
it's the four
Yeah.
C's. Thank you. Moving on next to the adoption of the agenda. Councilor Leidecker, I know your name is there, but I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor King to do the adoption of the agenda since you will be reading the resolution at that time. Deputy Mayor King, please.
So I move for the adoption of the agenda. However, I would like to add, thank you, Madam Mayor, if we could add 13E after 13D, a resolution transferring $749,556 from the capital non-recurring account to the Pleasant Valley Portable Classroom capital account. Again, I'd like to add 13E.
Is there a second? All those in favor of adding 13E? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, no discussion. And now we'll go with just the adoption of the agenda as amended. Can I get a motion for that, please?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt the agenda with this amendment.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. So Counselor Lydecker, when we get to 13, if you could read that, please. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, communications and reports from the town manager, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pleasant Valley Bridge Project. The Public Works Department is in the process of planning the Pleasant Valley Bridge replacement. Through this process, there are a few different ways the project can be completed. As a result, we're currently working on doing a presentation/public information session on the project and requesting feedback from the council as to the direction you feel would be best for the town moving forward. Our expectation that public feedback workshop information meeting would probably be sometime December. So we'll probably try to coincide it with one of your council meetings coming up. Moving on to the next item, in terms of the purchasing ordinance, as all of you know, we've been working on trying to find a solution to work within the charter while meeting the current financial challenges of 2022. Unfortunately, my original idea of having the purchasing ordinance will not work due to the restrictive nature of the charter. That said, we're currently exploring the idea of having the town council pass a number of resolutions that will allow certain exemptions for a period of time. Those exemptions may be for when it is in the best interest of the town and when using regional purchasing agencies. These resolutions can become an annual review and activity of the council that would be done in conjunction with the budget. And hopefully that should reduce some of the continued instances where we're coming forward and asking all of you to do some type of a waiver exemption, something of that nature. So currently myself and the town attorney are working on those resolutions. We'll get something hopefully in front of you in the next probably about a month. In terms of pickleball, I'm pleased to report that the pickleball courts are done, and we held a very nice opening ceremony in the rain. It's actually been very impressive to see the amount of use the courts have received both in the rain as well as on fair weather days. I'm also very pleased to report that the Finance Department has again received the GFOA Award for this year's annual budget. The award is given for demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story. This award is particularly significant this year since we changed our budget book to an online format. I would like to extend congratulations to the Finance Department and the countless staff who continue to work to make this year's budget a success. In terms of our parking lot paving here at the Town Hall and Library, the major work on the parking lot is complete. The only pieces left to finish is the striping and some of the handwork to backfill in sections around the lot. I again would like to ask people to continue to use caution as they move through the lot, since there will be people working periodically and there are some open areas still out there. So, in terms of the splash pad, the 820 and the 824 approval, on October 25th, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission gave a favorable report on the splash pad project for Nevers Park. Slowly, the project is continuing to move ahead with the expectation of it to be operational by summer of 2023. Also, I was asked to talk about road hazards due to debris in the roads. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the public of town ordinances, section 86-91, which requires residents to clear sidewalks of snow and ice within 24 hours of the end of a weather event, as well as section 86-91, which prohibits residents or business owners from moving snow onto the traveled portion of the road, and section 50-32, which prohibits anyone from placing refuse or waste material in or upon any public property. Please remember, this is for everyone's safety. Debris in the road causes a hazard for everyone who is traveling on our roadways. Additionally, with leaf season upon us, this can pose a particular hazard when it comes to fires, masking hazards within the road, and causing slippery conditions. And then lastly, I'd like to give everybody a quick update in regard to collections for tax collection. Currently, we are at 56.48% collected, which is pretty standard for where we are within the year. And when you compare that to the previous year, we were at 56.45% at this time of the year. So we're actually a little ahead of where we were in the previous year. So overall, everything's doing good, and the collections office is working hard. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Maniscalco? Deputy Mayor King.
Just one, Madam Mayor, thank you. Can you remind us all about the dates for leaf collection? If you happen to have those,
I don't
obviously
happen to
all-
have them off the top of my head, but I do know they are on the website.
Okay.
And it depends on where you live too. So you gotta look and figure out where you live and then look at the dates that they have for collection. But there will be 2 passes this year again, so.
So 2 passes, and essentially, please, everybody just go to the website, find out when they're gonna be coming your way.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you, sir.
Counselor Kozakowski, you good? You're all good? Okay, thank you. Is that it for questions for Mr. Maniscalco? Congratulations to our staff, Mr. Maniscalco, on the award for the budget once again.
Thank you.
It's an amazing budget, and I know that they work very diligently and very hard on that. To get that, what is 3rd year in a row, you said, is it?
I think we've received it 4 or 5 years now in a
4 or
row.
5 years in a
Yeah.
row. That's fantastic. Congratulate the staff,
Thank you.
please, from the council. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. And moving on, we are now at the public input items for the agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
Hit the button right here. Nope. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pendleton, Deputy Mayor King, councilors, and town manager. I'm John Pelkey. I live at 446 Pleasant Valley Road in South Windsor. I'm coming here tonight as the president of the South Windsor Historical Society and speaking to item 13A, which is a matching mini grant that we are applying for. Just to give you a little brief background, I will be here for your discussion if you have further questions, but I took over the role as the new president of the Historical Society this year, and it's been a busy year. Our prior president passed away of a heart attack. His son stepped in for a year, and I took on the new role this year. So there were a lot of things that had to be kind of caught up, if you will, and one of them was to really put some maintenance into the Pleasant Valley Schoolhouse, our museum on Ellington Road. In reviewing the situation, we realized there were things that needed to be repaired, some safety issues, some really maintenance issues that really had to be taken care of. So we set out to put together a plan, and we wanted to, being this is by the way, the 75th anniversary of the Historical Society, we wanted to put a good face on the Historical Society, our main building. As you may be aware, we also have the Union District School Building on 771 Main Street next to the Wood. We put a lot of focus on that, and we did get the building painted. We put a lot of repairs into fixing the deck, the walkway, and all of that. But we ran short of funds to do the last 2 things that are on our hit list, and probably the more important things were the safety issues that we had to address. One was the sidewalk. There's a brick sidewalk along the building that was put in many years ago. I'm not sure exactly when, but probably when the school building first went in there. And those are bricks where people can pay for engraving as a donation. And I think it was put in by volunteer help, and really the base was never done properly, such that now we have a walkway with bricks going every which way, and we have a stanchion across it to keep people really off the sidewalk. And the second thing that came to our attention is we have a maple tree out near Schoolhouse Road, on the corner of Schoolhouse and Ellington Road, and it was dropping branches. So we had an arborist come in, look at the tree, and he says essentially the tree should be coming down. The concern with that particular tree and the location is that there's on Schoolhouse Road, a little PUD that's in there. There's a bus shelter there that was built, and that's where the kids, especially on a rainy day, will get into that shelter. If that tree ever fell, it would fall on that shelter. So that's a concern of ours. If it fell the other way, it would fall on our building probably, and then the third option is to go across Ellington Road. So none of them really good options. So we'd like to get that tree taken down as soon as possible. And then the brick walkway we'll do early spring. We did go out for many bids on it, and not even knowing that we were going to apply for the grant, we were looking for the best price and best reasonable price, and we came across one, a very competitive bid. There's also a stand of trees that are not our trees, but actually belong to that development. There's one dead tree there, and I'll call it 5 trees, but there's 2 of them have a double trunk, if you will, so it's really 3 trees with 2 with double trunks. And those are in pretty bad shape, and the estimate we had to take our tree down, that particular tree service said if he's in there, he'll do the other trees for a very reasonable price. I sent that information on to their board of directors, and hopefully they'll jump on board to, if you will, piggyback on ours, because since he's there, it's cheaper for him to do it. So it was a terrific price. So with that, that's, I think in a nutshell, what it is. We've gone through all the criteria. It's gone to the town manager. It's gone to the town attorney. All questions, I think, I anticipated a lot of the questions that would be asked. As some of you may be aware, when I was on the council, I actually wrote this mini grant. I was the author of it, if you will, and have applied a couple times myself, and we've probably had 50 different people in town apply for it. So I kind of knew the rules and regulations, and tried to anticipate what the councilors were going to ask, like, did you go out and competitively bid it? Yes, we did. How about Eversource? Can they take the tree down? No, it's not close enough to the darn wires. That's what we were hoping, but as we went out there, it was too far away. Eversource wouldn't take it down. So we tried to anticipate all of that as well in the information that we gave to the town manager. So with that, I won't get into any further detail, but I will be here on the discussion item if you want to ask any further questions. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkey. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak in public input on any items on the agenda?
Thank you. Alan Cavagnaro, 83 Pine Knob Drive. I just want to mention a quick item, 11A.2. This is the appointment of Mitchell Marks for the Human Relations Commission. Usually, I know people don't speak about appointments, and I know the council won't be voting on it until next meeting. I just wanted to speak in favor of it. I've known Mitchell mostly all of my life. He's done a lot of great work with the nonprofit I was involved with. He was a treasurer and helped us with 501c4 stuff. Really, he's been committed and motivated. I've known him for such a long time, and I can see that through him from the first day I met him till now. And we do need more young people involved in our town, essentially, within commissions. Even though it's a smaller commission, Human Relations is such a vital commission within our town, and having Mitchell on it would be a benefit for everyone. So that's it, and I hope that everyone votes in the affirmative for the motion for Mitchell Marks on the Human Relations Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any items on the agenda? Asking again, anyone like to speak on any items on the agenda? Third time, anyone like to speak to any items on the agenda? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to item number 8, adoption of minutes of previous meetings. Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Approval of October 17, 2022 Town Council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of October 17, 2022.
Is there a second? And is there any additions, changes, deletions, corrections that anyone noticed? None? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, communications from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Do we have any communications from any of our liaisons this evening? Deputy Mayor King.
It's just real quick. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission the other day, and I just want to put something out there just for everyone that they approved application 22-38P, which is for climate-controlled vertical self-storage at 249 Ellington Road. Just want to make sure that all of our community is aware, because recently we've had a bunch of people talk about what are we building, how are we building, when are we building, nobody knew anything. So I just want to put that out there that something was approved by the Inland Wetlands Agency. Obviously, their purview is different than, say, planning and zoning. However, if you do have any questions or anything like that, you can go to the website. But their application 22-38P, which is a climate-controlled vertical self-storage at 249 Ellington Road, so it's right on the other side of Coca-Cola, right across the street from the quote-unquote nondescript Amazon building. That's where the location is supposed to be. So if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to that committee, but just in anticipation of where it's going to be moving forward.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor King. Councilor Kozakowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that the Planning and Zoning Commission had a meeting on October 25th where they took a few actions. They provided favorable reports, 824 reports, for the construction of the splash pad at Nevers Park, as well as a formative 824 report for the temporary relocation of the Parks Department to the old Orchard Hill building. And lastly, as I reported last week, last meeting, the commission held interviews for candidates to be to help South Windsor and the commission draft the next update of the Plan of Conservation Development. They had a fairly lengthy deliberation and chose to move with the SLAM collaborative proposal. So I don't know how far along they are with that process, but they have identified a preferred consultant.
Thank you, Councilor Kozakowski. Any other reports? Not seeing any. Moving on to item 10, which is reports from committees. Mr. Maniscalco, did we not have a, was it a pension committee recently?
Yes, we did have our pension committee.
Do we have a report on that or no?
Typically, I don't know if any
I
of the
can
members.
speak to that.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
So Councilor Paterna and I attended the pension committee. It was not pretty. I think we've lost almost 20% of value in our assets. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about 20%. So there was a lot of discussions about what we're going to stay with in our investments, what they could kind of move, but it's not out of the realm of what everybody else is experiencing nationally, worldly. So I think we're still in a better position in some of our assets, but overall the picture was bleak, but that's kind of where the climate of the country is at the moment.
I look forward to your report next time with some great news.
Yes, we do too.
Thank you. Is there any other reports from any other committees? Not, Councilor Kozakowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that the Strategic Planning Committee had a meeting last week, I believe, the week before, and the committee reviewed a potential contract with a consultant from UConn. His name escapes me. I apologize.
Dr. El-Kadri.
Yes, thank you. Who will help us with the public outreach portion of the strategic planning efforts, and as well as helping us kind of formulate the strategic plan. So
That's great.
So I believe that we have a signed contract, correct?
Yes, we do have a signed agreement.
Okay, so we're looking forward to move forward with the next phase, which is will be public outreach. So we'll have more to report on that at the next.
That's
meeting.
fantastic. Good job. Kudos to the Strategic Planning Committee. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco, for your help with that. Appreciate it. Any other reports from committees? Not seeing any. We'll move on to the consent agenda, item 11, which is the first reading. Councilor Paterna, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve items 11A1 through 11A3 as a first reading on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Item 11-2, A2 is, no, I'm sorry, wrong, flip my page. Apologize. Which is item 11B for a second reading. Councilor Gamble, please.
Motion to approve items 11B1 through 11B3 as a second reading on the consent agenda.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, second. Is there a second? Thank you. And all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Item 11C, miscellaneous, there is none. Item 12, unfinished business, there is none. Item 13A, discussion item for the Historical Society mini matching grant. Mr. Maniscalco, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as Mr. Pelkey mentioned, they did put in the application, which should be in your packet, as well as the response from the town attorney, which is standard course for him to review that, and he has given it a favorable recommendation. We also provided you with the grant guidelines and documentation from the town website. The one piece that we have not addressed at this point yet, and we'll probably be looking for some guidance from all of you, the mini matching grant fund, I believe, has about $1,400 in it at this point. So we don't have the money actually in the fund to be able to pay for the grant. That being said, you do have the ability to transfer funds into that account, and that's what's typically happened historically. We have a couple different locations those funds can come from, but those, depending on where the location, you would have to go through different activities. So basically, I looked at all the different options. You kind of have four in front of you. One would be to take from capital non-reoccurring, which would mean we would have to go to the capital committee, ask them if they would be willing to allocate some of those for the mini matching grant, and then we would probably have to have a public hearing, and then the funds would be transferred. Two, we could go through contingency, which you guys all have the authority to do that. That being said, right now, one of the challenges facing contingency, as I explained at our previous meeting, we are running very close in our forecast with our budget, and not having winter coming through yet, we are a little hesitant in that regard, but you do have the ability to transfer from contingency. Lastly, you could do some type of an additional appropriation, which would probably require a public hearing as well. That would probably come from the general fund. And then the last option, which would probably be, I don't know if it's how favorable this would be to the Historical Society or not, would be to probably wait a little while till we get a little bit through the winter season and see where we are. So those are kind of the options to think about. We just wanted to put it on as a discussion item for tonight, so that way you guys could all consider those, and we are looking for some direction from you as to how you'd like to proceed.
Mr. Maniscalco, I'm searching, and I think the rest of us are too, searching for the four options that you just mentioned.
I don't believe they're in your, those are not in your packet.
Okay, that's, yeah, because we're all searching, we're looking, we'll stop searching. Okay, so, so if we could ask, I'd like to start with the latter of your option to have the president of the Historical Society come up, please, Mr. Pelkey, to address the urgent need, if you have an urgent need, or if it could wait till spring, so we can have the public conversation about that.
Sure. The real urgent need actually is the tree. The sidewalk we were going to do in the spring anyway, because it's kind of almost out of the season for that.
Okay.
So if you wanted to split that up to the spring time, that would work for us. I'm not sure if you could approve the whole thing and then split the payout the next year, or will we have to come back?
Well, from the finance department's perspective, once the money is allocated, it's allocated. It doesn't, you know,
Okay.
whether it's paid or not, it doesn't really matter.
I didn't know if we had to put.
So once
split
it's
the application
allocated,
up.
that would be our step, is to allocate the funding.
Yep.
But at the time, like, you could work with the time of when the funding is needed or when it's used, you can work with that.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't really, that won't be as impactful.
Okay.
You know, right now, what we're working off of is our forecast, right? So
Right.
those funds haven't actually been spent, they're just forecasted to be spent.
Got it,
So, you know, it kind of depends on how things go.
got it. And what was your tree estimate did you get?
It was $2,800. That was the
Okay.
best
The
estimate.
best you could get?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have 14, we're halfway there, but that's something that, other than if we knew the money was coming in, we could shift money in our books around to get us through till springtime, that would work for us, knowing that if we had it, it would be the assurance that we could take funds out of, move them along as you juggle
Yeah,
budgets. we can
just
as
trying to
well.
think, I almost wonder if maybe if we could get through the process of an approval here on this side,
Right.
and with the intent of then funding it maybe later on in the year.
Yeah.
With that approval, maybe that would give you the assurance to be able to move forward with whatever you need to do, you could get that done, and then we would be reimbursing
Yeah.
you later.
Yeah, if we knew it was
Just a
coming,
thought.
that would be a relief for us to
Okay.
know, well, it's coming, and we would have to just juggle things in our budget, things that we could put off till later on in our budget
Great,
year.
great.
So that would work, and I would just take this opportunity to appeal to the general public. If you would like to make a donation to the Historical Society,
That would be great.
that would be wonderful. We are celebrating our 75th anniversary, and help us celebrate that, a $75 donation would be wonderful. If you wait another few months, it'll be $76. So you could save
That would be
$1.
great. Thank you, Mr. Pilkey. I do have a question.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the communication that's taken place here openly and transparently, and everyone understands, and we can ask our questions. I really appreciate that. Who owns the property that the old schoolhouse sits on?
It's owned by the Historical Society, as far as I know. We own the property.
But is not the Historical Society a town?
No.
It's not a town agency.
No,
It's
no,
something
it's a-
totally different.
Oh, no, it's a nonprofit LLC.
Got it, thank you.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Because I know folks are probably thinking, oh, that's town property, why can't our town folks come in and take the tree
No,
down?
no.
So I just wanted to clarify
The
that.
school was owned by the town at one point, but it
Right.
was sold off to the Historical Society, I believe in 1975. I'm not
Okay.
absolutely sure.
77. Oh, thank you for that clarification for the folks that may
Lisa Copper,
ask.
she's
Yep.
our manager of the schoolhouse itself, and did a lot of the legwork to
Yeah.
get the bids and what have you. And, again, the safety is the concern that we have with the
Right.
tree. One of the things I failed to mention, but it is in your packet, is we do use the schoolhouse as part of the third grade program
Yes.
that they come through. And that's why we want to get everything in order before they come through in the spring,
Right.
to get everything fixed up. But the tree itself, because of the condition it's in, we didn't realize that until we had already put the money into the painting of the building, which needed to be painted, until we saw branches falling and we went, what's going on here? So we had an arborist come in and check it out. And because of its location so close to that shelter, we just, said it's the thing that we have to do. We don't want to have it become an accident, someone getting hurt, or just falling, and then it becomes way more expensive to remove the tree if we don't.
Wouldn't it be
plan.
great if a tree company would donate their services and just take the tree down?
It would. They did give us a pretty good price on it, as well as the folks doing the sidewalk. When I saw the quote for the sidewalk, I go, oh my God, it's like, I would have charged way more than that, but they heard me. I didn't mention
I
their
know.
name.
You're being recorded.
So in any case, I think because we were the Historical Society as a nonprofit, they gave us a terrific price on it, so.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkey.
and
Thank
they're-
you.
They're well known, so. Thank you.
So if I could ask the council members, this is a discussion item. Councilor Paterno, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to talk more about the Historical Society and less about where the money should come from. Because we have an organization here in town, not only do all the third graders go through that Pleasant Valley Schoolhouse as a museum, and it is a museum, it's not just a schoolroom. They're learning about history there when they go and visit. They sponsor many programs in town, sometimes on their own at the schoolhouse, sometimes in conjunction with Wood Library. Again, historically related programs. I think this is such a valuable organization for this town, so I know I, for one, am happy to support however we can find this money to come up with this matching mini grant to help support the Historical Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paterno. Deputy Mayor King.
I'll yield to
Okay, Councilor Kozakowski.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I just had a quick question about the project itself. I can understand and appreciate the need to remove the tree that's failing and has potentially dangerous consequences if it falls. But in the scope of the project, is there any plan to replace the tree with another tree that may not grow so large, maybe put it in a better location?
We were actually talking about doing some memorial trees, but we haven't taken that up yet as a society. So where we do that may not be, obviously won't be at that location. Probably pick another spot on the property where it's safer.
Okay. Yeah, I highly encourage.
Yeah, it's something that we haven't met as a board with the details of how we would choose that. That'll be next year's agenda, if you will, of coming up. Again, when I was on the council, one of the things we did of naming buildings, we have a naming committee on the council. And we're going to do the same thing on the Historical Society this coming year. We're going to form that to have criteria, because, you know, as the naming committee on the council, you're probably well aware, some of you, that it came up, someone would die and say, hey, we got to name something after him. So the input I had on that was to beforehand have criteria, and then when something happens, you look at the criteria and say, does it fit? We'll be doing the same thing with the Historical Society. So some of the lessons learned, if you will, that I had on the council, I'm trying to pass on to the Historical Society.
Yeah, and I just want to just say I encourage including the replanting in the project, even though it might come, you know, a year later or 2 years later. But I would like to, you know, make sure we have that tree replaced. Just our tree canopy is important in town, especially along a very busy corridor. And anytime we can keep the streets looking nice with trees, I want to make sure we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Counselor, if you could just, Counselor Evans?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Palkley, for bringing this to our attention. And I do recognize that really there has been a new prevalence of seeing the activity of the Historical Society in town. So I really appreciate all the work you've done with that. I know the schoolhouse is very near my home, right around the corner, and love seeing it. Also, you know, Councilor Paterno forgot to mention the holiday event that you put on, and that's a great one that we love going to, too. I'm wondering if we know the age of this tree. If this was here when the schoolhouse was being used. I think it would be interesting is when it's cut down, it might be an interesting study to look at, you know, the rings, how you can tell how old it is. It might be interesting to look at that and kind of create a history of the tree that kind of ties back to South Windsor and the school building.
We'll have to, when he's there and cuts it down, we'll have to count quickly, because part of this price is grinding the stump out as well.
Yep. I think that we might have an answer on its age, though.
Verticillium wilt, and this is why it's dropping the branches. And there is actually a tree that the neighborhood association planted near this tree, and there's also another maple tree right next to it. That maple tree is old, but it's in halfway good condition. You know, eventually it'll have to come down too, because it has lost a few limbs. But you know, I think the people who would take it would basically clear off the debris, whether they would leave something. They're going to remove the stump also. Because otherwise it just creates a hazard for parking, because we have very limited parking space at that facility.
But that tree that is there, that's going to be taken down, was that there when the schoolhouse was active and being used?
No, because the schoolhouse was moved to the property.
Yeah. It was 1862 the schoolhouse was built, so I doubt that tree is that old.
That tree's probably, I'm going to guess, 75, 85 years old.
It's a maple.
75, same as the Historical Society.
This is historical.
Got to count those rings.
Thank you.
Right. But the school,
thank you.
my understanding, the schoolhouse was moved, I think it was across the street at one
No,
time.
the schoolhouse was across the street,
Right.
but then somebody bought that and took it someplace. They
Right.
moved another one that was close, and then they moved this one back.
Listen to her go.
It's
Oh,
been moving
man.
around. It's been traveling around.
We have no idea
Don't mess with that info.
what the tree is. All we know is that it's dropping limbs, and we don't want it to fall on anybody.
I will say that I did get a bulletin in tonight that Santa is coming this year.
Awesome.
You know, okay, I haven't got his schedule yet. He's very busy, as you know, but it'll be in December for sure.
Awesome.
I'd like to add something. We have a very and we are going to start programs. I'm the chairperson of the Pleasant Valley School Committee. We are going to start programs in January, and we're going to run monthly programs for people to come in small groups, because it's a very small parking area there. You can't have a large group. So we're starting up since COVID to do many different activities.
Ms. Program Coordinator, could you please identify yourself?
Identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lisa Copper, 1 Autumn Drive, and I'm the chairperson of the Pleasant Valley School House Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkey.
Deputy Mayor has one.
Is anyone else? Oh, Deputy Mayor King.
The only question that I have is in regards to, so the Historical Society, you said, is a not-for-profit, correct? So, for the record, perhaps we should say where people can write checks to, because if I'm correct, it's 501c3?
Yeah, we're 501.
Okay, so people can use that as a write-off.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Trying to put it out there. So for the public, who, if I wanted to write a $75 check, who should I write it to so that people can mail it to you so they can write it off?
Right, South Windsor Historical Society, that's who you would make it. pay
Address.
And you, yeah, I'm trying to
An
make.
address to send the check to.
P.O. Box 216 in South Windsor, obviously.
We should have brought a membership pamphlet.
Yeah, we should have run a membership pamphlet, yeah. Then we'll have to,
But again, any check that's written that you receive is a tax write-off.
yes, yes,
Thank you.
according to your accountant. So-
Thank you, Mr. Pilkey.
So if I could just leave you with my byline that I've been using right along this year is what happened yesterday is today's history, and what happens today is tomorrow's history. So do something meaningful today, so tomorrow's history will be notable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelkey. And with that discussion item, Mr. Maniscalco, if we could just take a consensus from the council to have the item on the next agenda, a resolution on the next agenda, if
So
that's...
that, just to make sure we're clear, the resolution would be to approve the grant, and then we're going to do the funding later.
Correct.
Okay.
If that's a consensus with the council. Yes, thank you. Moving on to item number 13B, Councilor Evans.
13B, resolution accepting the Old Orchard Hill School to temporarily house the Parks and Recreation Department and formally start the process of moving the Parks and Recreation Department to Old Orchard Hill. Whereas the town has leased Wapping School from the Board of Education to house the Parks and Recreation Department and Facilities Department, and whereas the Board of Education needs Wapping School to house an increase in students at the high school, and whereas the town has an immediate need to temporarily relocate the Parks and Recreation and Facilities Departments to the Old Orchard Hill School, and whereas the Parks and Recreation Facilities Implementation Committee recommended the Old Orchard Hill as a temporary housing solution for the department, and whereas the Town Council directed Town Manager Michael Maniscalco, pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, to seek a favorable recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved or provided a recommendation to the town, be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the Old Orchard Hill School to temporarily house the Parks and Recreation and Facilities Department, and formally direct Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to begin the process of relocating both departments to the Old Orchard Hill School.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Councilor Kozakowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just looking at the last whereas clause where it says the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously provided a recommendation to the town. It doesn't specify what kind of recommendation it provided. So I think it might be prudent to say something like provided a favorable recommendation.
I'm sorry, can you identify which paragraph, please?
The last whereas clause.
Okay.
Could I actually make a further recommendation? Because the last two whereases, unfortunately, there's a typo in the first one, which says seek a favorable recommendation. It's supposed to just say seek a recommendation. And then the last one is supposed to say unanimously provided a favorable recommendation.
So I guess,
So take the favorable from the one above and maybe move it below, if you wanted to make an amendment to that effect.
So whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission provided a favorable recommendation to the town? Is that what you're saying in the last whereas?
Yes.
and take it out of the one above it? Just seek recommendation
Yeah,
from Planning and
that's
Zoning
exactly
Commission.
So
Is
I
that
guess,
okay?
motion to amend the resolution to remove the word favorable from the second to last whereas clause and add the word favorable to the last whereas clause prior, right before it says recommendation. So it says provide a favorable recommendation.
All those in, any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, so that amended resolution, the amendment has just been approved. Now we need to approve the resolution, please. There was a second on the resolution, correct? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that correction out. Deputy Mayor King, 13C, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A resolution approving the application for the Emergency Management Performance Grant. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council may hereby enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Energy Management and Homeland Security any and all documents which it deems necessary or appropriate for the memorandum of agreement regarding the use of federal fiscal year 2022 state Homeland Security grant funding and custodial ownership of regional assets in DEMHS or Demas Region 3. And be it further resolved that Michael Maniscalco, Town Manager of the Town of South Windsor, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Town of South Windsor, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems necessary to be or appropriate to carry out the terms of the memorandum of agreement regarding use of federal fiscal year 2022 state Homeland Security grant funding and custodial ownership of regional assets, Demas Region 3, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents.
Is there a second? Mr. Maniscalco, could you address this, please?
Sure, so this is this is a standard resolution that we have to approve annually because this is a grant that we get every year from the state of Connecticut for conducting emergency management activities, whether it's preparations or actually carrying out activities for the health, safety, and welfare of our community.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Maniscalco or discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Moving on to 13D. Councilor Kubasky, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 13D, resolution approving Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to enter an agreement with the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management, and Homeland Security Grant. Whereas the Town of South Windsor Emergency Management Department applied for a 2022 Congressional Direct Spending Grant through Senator Murphy's office for Emergency Operations Center renovations, and whereas the grant is administered by the Connecticut State Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection and the Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and whereas the grant will be used to finish the construction of the dispatch room at the Emergency Operations Center Command Room, and whereas the total project cost is $112,000, and whereas the total FEMA award is 75% of the project costs, totaling $84,000, with a matching 25% match by the Town of South Windsor totaling $28,000. And be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council authorizes the Town of South Windsor may enter into, with, and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate. And be it further resolved that Michael Maniscalco, as Town Manager of the Town of South Windsor, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Town of South Windsor, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents.
Is there a second? Councilor Gamble.
Thank you. Discussion.
Discussion item,
All
go
right.
ahead.
Mr. Maniscalco, do we have a matching grant fund in our budget for these types of things that keep popping up tonight?
For this one, we don't have a line item in our budget, but Yeah, no, we don't have a matching grant fund.
Well, not a fund, but, you know, like are we anticipating these kinds of things, like when we do the budget process, like 25,000 here, 5,000 there? Someone else came with a splash pad grant matching or something like that.
Yeah, so whenever we can, we are anticipating them and putting them into the budget wherever possible. That said, in this instance, our plan, we have ISAIS funds that we received back from FEMA, so our thought was to potentially use those or to talk to capital non-recurring as well, so we've got to look at both of those locations for this, which would be applicable. Whenever we do know of a grant that's coming in like this that will have matching, we will set it aside if it fits within the budgetary process, because, you know, our budget works on a calendar and schedule and everything. So whenever we can, we do put it in, but they don't always fit with that schedule.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Kabasky? No, you're all good? Yeah, Councilor Paterno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Maniscalco, just one question on the next to last paragraph. It says, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council authorizes the town of South Windsor may enter into with and deliver. May, should we be more positive and say should enter or will enter?
I'm comfortable with May. I think
Yeah?
May is fine, yeah. And I
Okay.
think that, you know, we pass resolutions like these more or less to get the state of Connecticut comfortable as well as the federal government. In this instance, it's a pass-through grant from the federal government. So, you know, these resolutions are more or less there to make the state of Connecticut comfortable that I have the authority to enter into agreements that they may ask of us, so.
And does it give us, suppose they came back and said, well, we've changed the percentages now, so now you have to match it by 50% instead of 25%. This allows us to say, well, we're not interested then.
Yeah, so
Yes,
if the change went in that direction, certainly we could turn around and say something to that nature. I have heard rumor, though, that there has been a modification that actually increases the allocation the town would get and decreases the match requirement, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yes, Deputy Mayor King?
Just because I appreciate the wordplay that we're all doing tonight in regards to these resolutions, just to make sure that they're right. In the last one, should it be he-c? She? Isn't it you? Where it says, and to perform any and all acts, things which he-c deems necessary? Am I wrong there, or is this gonna be in the future, or is this happening now? So wouldn't it just be him?
Him, yeah. That's how it was read, he, which he deems to be necessary, Mr. Maniscalco, he.
No, yeah, I mean, if it's cool with everybody, cool. If not, unless you plan on making a job change or something.
No.
Do we have a new person? Okay, thank you. Councilor Kozkowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick questions. So just to be clear, we currently do not have a funding source for that $28,000.
Well, we do have a couple locations where those funds could come from, but we haven't gone through the process of actually allocating them yet because we haven't, I mean, we just recently heard from the feds that they want us to start doing this. So this means that we're actually moving forward with that grant. So, you know, you kind of don't know what's happening until they reach out.
Okay, so it will take another action by the council.
It should, well, depending on where the money comes from, but yes, it probably will.
Okay. And then last question, so it says the total project cost is $112,000. When was that estimate made, and has it changed, or will it change?
Yeah, I mean, the first I heard of them talking about this project was probably about a year ago. So it may have changed, probably needs to be updated at this point, but that's what we had at the time, so.
Let's not assume it'll go up, but let's say hypothetically it does increase by a certain percentage. Will FEMA's contribution stay at the 75%, and where their contribution would scale up disproportionately?
Well, I think the total dollar amount that FEMA has said that they're gonna allocate is the 84,000, so I don't believe that's gonna change. So if the project cost increased, it would probably, we'd have to do one of two things. Either we'd value engineer it to make it work within the budget that's there, which would be my preference in all honesty, or we would be looking for another funding source for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Campbell.
Thank you. So this project was estimated about a year ago, which was around this time you were starting to put the budget together for this coming year. So at that time, did you know of any funding sources that you may or may not have needed for this? Did you
Yeah,
think there
but
would
we
be a
didn't
grant?
know this was approved yet, so,
No, but I mean, you thought about this as being a project, right? And that would cost money, sort of.
well, I mean, we've got tons of grant applications that are going out for things that are projects all the time. If I allocated those funds through the budget process before we actually knew it was a real grant, we would artificially be inflating the budget, because a lot of them don't always come to fruition.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Peek-
that's
a
the
peek behind
challenge I would be-
thank you for the peek behind the grant application process. I wasn't aware
Yeah,
of, you know.
yeah. Yeah, we just
Especially
don't know.
especially there's probably a lot of federal grants out there these days, I would imagine, for ARPA and other things like that.
Yeah, so you don't know.
Right.
It's really a timing issue, right?
Okay.
So when are they going to approve their grant that they've put out? So when do we find out when it's approved? And when do we put our budget together? And which one comes first? And how do we, because I would hate to put an extra $28,000 into the budget, find out that this doesn't move forward, and that just goes through. We tax taxpayers for the $28,000. And then that $28,000 goes and just sits in the general fund. It's kind of like overtaxing the residents, which I don't
So
think
would
be
we not
appropriate.
have done this project if there wasn't a grant associated with it?
We probably wouldn't be doing it at this time if the grant hadn't come through. We'd probably be sitting on it as part of capital.
Okay.
And when capital decided that it was a priority, then we would probably move forward with it at that
All
time.
right, thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Maniscalco, I think, if I'm not, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that Mr. Roberts came and did speak to us about this grant back in the day. I do recall him mentioning this when we were talking about various budgets or what he was going to be doing down at the Emergency Operations Center. I remember that conversation. The only other thing that I have to say about paragraph 3 is, and correct me again if I'm wrong, it says, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council authorizes the town of South Windsor. Who is the town of South Windsor? Who are we authorizing? I thought maybe it should be authorizes Mr. Maniscalco, the town manager of the town of South Windsor. You have your name put in front of that, because that's who we're not authorizing the town, we're authorizing someone. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I also think it still works the way it's written.
Okay.
Because as the town, there's really only one person that can enter into a
And that's you.
binding agreement, and that's myself.
And in the
So,
next paragraph, it does say that, so,
Yeah.
thank you, I got it. If everyone is okay with that, well, good, okay. So, okay, thank you, Counselor Campbell. We have your approval to move on, great. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Item 14, passage of ordinance, there is none. But, I'm sorry,
you have to go to 13E.
I forget, it's right here in front of me, 13E. We are going back. Counselor Lydecker, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 13E, resolution transferring $749,556 from the capital non-reoccurring account to Pleasant Valley Portable Classroom Capital Account. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the transfer of $749,556 from the capital non-recurring account to the Pleasant Valley Portable Classroom Capital Account. A public hearing was held on Monday, October 17th, 2022 at 8 p.m.
Is there a second? Is there a discussion? Counselor Lydecker, any discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Evans?
This is a removal of the portables at Pleasant Valley? Or is this the ones being added to Philip R. Smith?
So my understanding is that this is the name of the account, for whatever reason, when they created they created a Pleasant Valley Portables account, when they're putting the portables on Pleasant Valley. So that's just the name of the account. This is to pay for the new portables that they identified for,
Philip R. Smith.
Philip R. Smith, thank you.
Okay. So it'll just go into that general account. We don't need to note that that's what it's being used for?
You could add that to it. This is what, from the conversation I had with our finance department, this is what they need for that funding.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Owens. It'd be nice to add a paragraph for specifics.
So I'd like to add a paragraph to say that the funds will be allocated for use of 2 portables?
I believe it was
At
2. 2,
Philip
yes.
R. Smith,
Rather than identify just a number, why don't we just say 4 portables?
4 portables. The addition of portables at Philip R. Smith Elementary School.
Is there a second? Second. Is there discussion on that addition to this resolution? Not hearing any. All those in favor to the addition? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any? Okay. So if we could just get that wording, Counselor Evans, into the record, if you could read that once again, please. So then we could, I'm sorry, if you could, Counselor Lydecker, did you get that friendly amendment there, that addition to the resolution? We did. It was just okay. And no, we're not identifying the amount. Just no. And so, all those in favor now of the amended resolution? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay. Moving on to item 14 now, passage of ordinance. There is none. Item 15, public input for any matter. And anyone from the public like to speak in item 15? Public input on any matter. Going for a third time, anyone from the public like to speak from public input on any matter? Not seeing any, we'll be moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Does anyone have any communications from the council that they'd like to share? Not seeing any? I do, thank you. First and foremost, a heartfelt thank you to all of South Windsor's veterans in recognition of Military Families Day and Military Family Month, and all our veterans, in inviting them down to VMP on the 11th at 11 o'clock. I would like to thank the Patriotic Commission for all the time, effort, and energy that they put into all the patriotic programs that we have in our community, from recognizing our veterans to Memorial Day to recognizing our fallen, to Armed Forces with the Armed Forces Day recognition, to celebrate those that are actively serving, and having picnic in the park with the fireworks. I'd like to thank them for the banners programs and the essay programs in fostering patriotism within our town of South Windsor. And one thing that I would like to mention is that the Patriotic Commission is looking for veterans that can get a hold of the Patriotic Commission on our town website, and they look for veterans around Veterans Day so they can go into the schools and speak to the students in our school system about their time when they were in the military. So you can contact the Patriotic Commission and get a hold of them. I'd also would like to read, which I found in our packet, on the Senior Connection for honoring veterans. And the Senior Connection is a newsletter that comes out from the Senior Center for residents 55 and older. And honoring our veterans, it says that we want to honor and celebrate all veterans on Thursday, November 10th, with dinner and entertainment. We will serve grilled cheese and soup at 4 p.m., followed by entertainment from the South Windsor High School Band at 4:30 p.m. Dinner will be free for veterans and $5 for all others. Pay and register in the office at any time, and that is for any seniors 55 and older. So I thank our Senior Center, Mr. Maniscalco, please, if you could, for including our veterans and acknowledging them for Veterans Day. And moving on, thank you. Not seeing anyone else. We will now go into executive session, please. Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move to number 17, executive session, inviting the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, the assistant town manager, she's available, Ms. Perry, as well as assistant town manager, Mr. Roberts, and any other appropriate personnel that Mr. Maniscalco deems necessary for letters A, strategy and negotiation regarding collective bargaining, the interest arbitration, South Windsor Town, and the South Windsor Police Union, case number 2022-MBA-16, as well as number B, under CGS 1-206B and 1-210B4 for purposes of discussing strategy and negotiations with respect to pending claims or pending litigation related to 460 Miller Road, including the following pending cases. Number one, the Town of South Windsor versus Kristen Latana, AKA Kristen Norton. Number two, Kristen Norton v. Town of South Windsor. Number three, Luigi Sartori, Director of Health, Town of South Windsor versus Kristen Norton. And number four, Kristen Norton, also known as Kristen Latana versus Town of South Windsor.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We will be adjourning from executive session. Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us.